Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, hi, Seahawks fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers, here to talk Seahawks football right after a really nice win at home against the Arizona Cardinals. The Seahawks moved to 6-5, technically tied in first place in the NFC West. I thought overall the defense played a remarkable game, holding the Cardinals without scoring a touchdown in this game, and really kind of just dominated the Cardinal offense. On the other side of the ball, Gino and company did just enough to do what they needed to do to put points on the board, enough to get the win. 16 points was enough to get the win in this game. Hats off to the defense. So this is three games in a row where they look outstanding. Yeah. In fact, this is probably the best game of the year overall, I thought, considering the run game that the Cardinals brought into this game. To hold. Let me check really quick.
James Conner, 7 carries for 8 yards, 1.1 yard average. That is crazy.
For and welcome in, by the way, Keith.
Piling up the yards. Yeah.
Sorry, I was a little excited, to be here. So I just kept talking.
No, it's good. The crazy. Defense. This was a defensive game. Not only did they just shut down Arizona, hold them to only 6 points, no touchdowns, but Seattle's defense also scored 7 points.
Yes.
With the Kobe Bryant interception return for a touchdown, which honestly was one of the dumber throws that you'll ever see Kyler Murray make. Like, that was just awful. And good on Kobe Bryant to be in the right spot and then get downfield. I mean, it was a nice return as well. So
it's a good play all around on the defense. I got to hand it to the defense though. Yeah, Kyler Murray made the silly throw, but you know what? The defense kind of forces that. Like, they'd been forcing him, pressuring him all game, getting to him, forcing those type of mistakes. And so that's a credit to the team defense there. And Kobe Bryant was there to take that thing in. An ode to Marshawn Lynch at the end there, got penalized for that. I'm sure he'll get fined as well, but nonetheless, it was fun.
Straight up, do not care.
That is one of the plays where Coach Mike McDonald will grin in the locker room and also hand him a game ball because, Kobe Bryant, let's be honest here, a couple of years of Kobe Bryant, we were all wondering what the heck was going on. What did the coaches see in that draft pick? Felt sorry for the kid. He got moved around 2 or 3 different times, had a couple different schemes that he played in, new coaching staff all the way around. Kid works his tail off. It impresses the coaches with his work ethic in practice, makes all the plays, still struggles a little bit in games. You're kind of like, I'm not sure where Kobe's at. Man, has he turned it on or what? Like the last 6 games, I think,
I was going to say
Kobe
5 or
Bryant,
6 games, yeah.
He's just been a different player. And Mike McDonald's got him playing at the top of his game, and now he's starting to make plays, and the game's slowing down for him.
He's been making plays. Now he's making game-changing plays the last couple of games. Like, he's having a good stretch here. And great, breakout year for him. I'm happy for him. Like, this is a guy that's clearly worked his tail off to get where he is, and love to see it.
Absolutely.
Love to see him.
And he retained his starting role, even though Rashawn Jenkins was ready to come back and play full time.
Jenkins played some today. They went with a heavy nickel, probably 12 plays. And
I haven't seen snap counts, but that sounds about right.
Yeah. Jenkins was available already. I hope they leave Bryant in there. Honestly, the defense has been better with him than it was with Jenkins.
The other player of the game, Leonard Williams.
Oh man, Leonard Williams was a beast up front. He was everywhere.
Yeah, so much fun to watch. Tackles behind the line of scrimmage, had 6 combined tackles, 2.5 sacks, tackles behind the line of scrimmage for loss. just all over the place, excited out there, getting his teammates around him. Something's going on with that defense where things that weren't working prior to 3 weeks ago are now working and in sync, and everybody looks to be positioned correctly and playing and supporting each other, and it's fun to watch. And we held a third-ranked rushing team to, like you said, 7 rushes, 8 carries, or 8 yards for James Conner. Trey Benson, a little better, 4 carries, 18 yards, 4.5 average. They really didn't even try to run the ball. They were behind from the get-go. They put the ball in Kyler Murray's hands. That's fine. Kyler Murray was 24 of 37, 285 yards, had the 1 interception, kept him out of the end zone, wasn't a factor. Their wide receivers weren't a factor in this game. Their tight end basically kind of had a career game for them. Good on him. Trey
12 receptions,
McBride.
133 yards. Yeah, he was their entire offense.
He was the offense. Now, they had a couple. Michael Wilson had a nice play, ended up with 2 catches for 54 yards. Everything else was pretty much in front of the defense. I thought, and that was kind of really pronounced on the very last drive. Seattle scored, and we'll talk about that last scoring drive with Seattle in a second. But after that, they had the ball with, I think, 1:56 left on the clock, 2 timeouts. And they kept everything in front of them. They didn't want to burn their timeouts just in case, because they needed to have 2 possessions out of that time. So they were going to have to go down and score and then get the ball back on an onside kick and then score again. And now it could have been a field goal first or a touchdown first. It didn't matter. They had to have 2 scores. And Seattle just kept everything in front. They ground the clock down. The defense continued to play. Kyler Murray, that was the way that the offense for the Cardinals went the entire game. Was just ineffective, I thought, overall. Seattle dominated that side of the ball.
Oh, absolutely. The Seahawks defense was dominant. That is the right word. Arizona never really put together a meaningful drive within this game. Like, it was a lot of 3 and outs, a lot of struggles to do much of anything, and it's a situation where, like, they just weren't able to get anything done.
So let me do this. So I've got the box score up, and I'm just going to run through the team stats, total yards, etc. And I just said the Seahawks dominated, but listen to this. It's kind of funny. So Seattle had 285 yards total yards. The Cardinals had 298. Cardinals had 249 passing yards. Seattle 220. Rushing yards, 49 for the Cardinals. 49 yards, by the way. We held them to 49 yards. 65 for Seattle yards per play. Cardinals had 5.3. Seattle only had 4.7. First downs, they were tied 17 apiece. Third down conversions, we were 7 for 14, 50%. That was a big deal, especially on the last drive. We're going to talk about that. 3 for 12, third down efficiency for the Cardinals. They had 5 sacks. We had 5 sacks, et cetera, et cetera. Penalties weren't really a factor. Both teams had interceptions. Time of possessions, 33 minutes for Seattle. So really, those stats paint a picture of it being fairly even. But why did it look like Seattle was really more effective against their offense than they were against us? It seemed like we were in our own way more, I think.
I don't know. I think that Seattle's defense dominated. I am not going to say that Seattle dominated. It felt like the Seahawks had kind of the run of things because they had a lead. And when you have the lead and you have this defensive game where neither team's offense can do much of anything, you feel better about it. It hurts less for your team to be failing on offense. But
that's true.
The Seahawks offense was dominated as well. And I think that, is kind of an important distinction. This was not a great game. This was not even a good game by Seattle.
Through 3 quarters, it was a slog. I mean, it was not effective. Like, we just could not run the ball very effective. Now we did in the fourth quarter, especially on the last drive, that worked out. But before that, I mean, the defense had the one score, and then the offense scored a touchdown and a field goal. That's essentially the scoring, and so it's or Jason Myers had a couple field goals. So the offense really wasn't that effective in getting the ball into the end zone and scoring a lot of points in this game. It was the defense that was the difference. The fourth, let's talk about that fourth quarter drive, Keith. 13 plays, 49 yards, 8 minutes, 12 seconds resulted in a Jason Myers 50-yard field goal with a minute 56 left on the clock. That was the difference. That was the deciding factor in that they needed 2 scores after that to secure a victory or just tie it to force overtime. So Seattle had about a 95% chance of winning at that moment. That was a huge drive where there was 3 or 4 third down conversions to keep that thing going. Geno Smith just put the team on his back. I mean, the offensive line still was not blocking well. We couldn't really effectively run the ball, but when we had to, we did make some plays to convert with the run. Now that quick run with
Charbonnet on 3rd and 4
on 3rd and 4 to convert, that was a key play in that drive. But over and over, Geno just made the plays when he had to. Jackson Smith and Jigba again had a outstanding game overall. And they did what they needed to do when they needed to do it. Impressive victory, really. Now, when you combine that with the last week's victory, now 6-5, no matter what happens this season, you can build on this kind of team wins, and because you're doing enough things correctly and improving on certain things in order to build on those things. The offense is still less than optimal.
It's a mess.
It's crazy. I don't know exactly how to pinpoint the issues and the problems. Maybe you can help me.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of, you keep bringing up the offensive line problems, and that is a big chunk of it. Is that the guard spots remain problematic, both of them, and that is part of the problem. But also, there's some problems with quarterback play, where you have Geno had guys open and didn't throw them the ball. Instead, he was waiting for the big play, and then he'd get sacked. Of those 5 sacks, I'd say 3 of them were on him. And then 2 of them were just blatantly awful play by the offensive line. It would also help if this team could run the ball. They could not run the ball at all, and
we had a lead in this game when we could not run the ball. We chose not to even attempt to run the ball in a couple obvious running situations where it would have helped to bleed the clock.
What they did instead, because they knew that the run blocking was just pathetic today, and that they weren't getting it done, so they went to bubble screen, wide receiver screen, tight end middle screen, running back screen, like just anything that they could do to get the ball very, very quickly out of Smith's hands, into somebody else's hands behind the line of scrimmage, and let them run for the yards.
Right.
And so those don't count as runs, those count as passes, but it was very consistent in that game when they were trying to bleed the clock. They weren't dropping Geno back and having him stand back there and survey the field. It was designed plays to get the ball out of his hands as fast as he can get it out of his hand and get the ball to someone else. So like I said,
we ran the
passes,
ball.
But
we ran the ball 22 times for 63 yards on designed runs. Geno had three carries for 2 yards, but designed runs 63 yards. Not good.
That Geno 3 carries for 2 yards should have been a lot more, because there was that third down play where he had a mile in front of him And instead of taking the first down, he chose to throw it into triple coverage and threw a pick in the end zone, which that right there could have changed the game, because instead of going up by multiple scores, now you're giving the ball back.
Yeah, that was
And
tough.
that was an 11-play, 73-yard drive that resulted in
Nothing.
nothing.
Right.
Resulted in them giving the ball back, and Arizona then went. They then turned around with after that and went 76 yards, but settled for a field goal. If they had punched it in there, this could have been a very different game.
What did you think about the strategy? So, just coaching strategy in general, game plan. The defense seemed to be a little bit more aggressive in this game than I've seen them play.
I liked it.
Talk to me about the strategy they had. Mike McDonald's defense against this Arizona Cardinal offense, which really couldn't get anything going. And it just seemed like we had their number.
Well, I mean, that offense is limited in a lot of ways. They don't have the receiver talent to punish you for going, one-on-one on the outside. And that's what the Seahawks did, is they went one-on-one on the outside and brought a lot of extra bodies up into the box. They routinely had 8-9-man boxes to stop the run, because that's what Arizona does. And they forced Kyler Murray to beat them with his arm, and that's not who he is. He's a guy that benefits a lot from a great running game, and then his scrambling ability and his ability to get out of trouble and extend plays, gives him opportunities to make some throws downfield. Basically, he's a young Russell Wilson, but he isn't a guy that you want dropping back and throwing the ball 40 times. And you saw why. Like, once they had to go away from the run, like, things got really hard for Arizona to do anything. They just couldn't convert a third down there for like half the game. The Seahawks started out poorly on third down, but then they went 6 in a row. Right up until that field goal, the 50-yard field goal at the end. They had 6 consecutive third down conversions, which is kind of how the game, they really took control of it.
Yes.
The long drive that should have been points, but instead was an interception, and then the long drive that ended up in a 50-yard field goal, but it 8 minutes and 12 seconds off the clock.
And they were not easy drives.
No,
they weren't. They weren't easy, and so hats off to the Cardinals for putting up a little fight. But man, Geno does so well in those sorts of situations. So we play the Cardinals again in 2 weeks, which is very interesting. I hope we don't have a letdown game next weekend against the Jets.
Yeah, I hate when the NFL does these like home and home, like within 3 weeks. They should be at least 5 games apart, in my opinion. I really don't like it when they do this to teams. And they've done it to the Seahawks with the 49ers multiple times over the last decade. Yeah, and the Rams too. Now this year it's Arizona. It's like there's got to be a better way to do the scheduling. But, the Seahawks are good in Arizona. Just they are. Yeah. It's not quite a home game, but it's really close because Seahawks fans travel well, and it's easy to buy up tickets in Arizona, and it's just a good place for them.
I mean, these teams are going to be the same teams that are going to line up again, and they're going to want to try to do the same things. And we saw that the Cardinals were not effective at all at running the ball. They didn't really try as hard as they thought that they would. They didn't stay committed to running the ball. I think they got behind a little bit. They decided to put the ball into Kyler Murray's hands, and really their tight end game was working for them. Their receiving the ball out of the backfield thing was working for them. So they thought that they could kind of get a little, go down the field, pick up a lot of third down conversions, and just march a little bit, and it just didn't work for them. They didn't end up converting on those. They ended up in third and longs more frequently than I think that they were anticipating, and they couldn't convert. And that was really the difference for their offense in being able to stay on the field. I think they punted 6 times, something like that, which is uncharacteristic of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun game though. Fun game. A nice win. So what does it mean? What does this mean now? We went into that 49er game. It was do or die. We were just literally a prayer and a chance in that game on the road against the 49ers. We hadn't been successful for like 6 years. It seemed like, right? And to come out of there with a win and then back at home the very next weekend against the first place team in the division, we win at home. We reclaim at least a share of the division now. What does it say about the team, the resilience, Mike McDonald and company?
Well, it shows you that the coaching staff has this team, has them locked in, and any concerns with that when they lost 5 of 6 of them that they were losing the team or anything like that. Like obviously there's none of that. This team is really locked in on everything that they're doing, especially defensively. And I think it says a lot that they were able to weather that bad stretch, weather that storm, and have the wherewithal to recognize what wasn't working, and that was a couple of players, and jettison those guys for other players so that things could start to work. And once they start working again, they're clicking. And you were saying that this defense has been really good for the last 3 weeks. Well, what happened 3 weeks ago?
Ernest Jones, baby.
Ernest Jones trade, right? They eliminated the weak point of this defense and made it a strength. And now this defense really works. And honestly, like they need to get him re-signed. Like that's got to be priority 1 this offseason.
And it could happen anytime. As far as I'm concerned, they have the cap.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine they're probably talking about it.
I hope so.
Yeah. So
because we know that this defense needs a middle linebacker. Like 1, we've seen it here, but 2, we also saw it in Baltimore. That Baltimore's defense went from being okay, good, to the best in the NFL when they gave McDonald Roquan Smith. When they made the trade and got Roquan Smith to anchor the center of that defense became elite. And here in Seattle, the defense wasn't good. They made the trade for Ernest Jones to anchor the middle of that defense, and now the defense is playing like an elite defense. Like you can't, I don't think you can overstate the importance of that position in this scheme.
It seemed like we need a downhill enforcer, tackler, physical guy that we just didn't have. We didn't have a guy that knew which gaps to fill, to call the defense, to put guys in the right positions. And I think you're right. I think the identity, we needed that identity part of the deal, and we just didn't have it. Yeah, a fantastic trade. I mean, really, probably one of the, and you take a look at Leonard Williams, how that worked out. Two trades out now. John Schneider has always tried to swing for the fences, I think every year for the last several years, to try to have this team be competitive, kind of in win now mode with Pete Carroll. And they were kind of in win mode at a certain point in this season, and made those trades to try to stay ahead of the pack. And both those trades the last couple of years that worked out. Sometimes they don't. But those 2 trades, man, Leonard Williams played out of his mind today. Just unreal.
He really did. And I think it's like Witherspoon played out of his mind today too. Like he was very physical and all over the place and making stuff like plays. Like that was great. Josh Joby in there did not have a tackle, did not have a stat other than 1 pass defended because he was so sticky in coverage today. which was great to see. It was crazy, just how good he did as the slot corner, and there's a lot of things working in Seattle right now on defense, and there's been a lot of strings pulled by this coaching staff in order to get a lot out of the guys they have. And it took them a bit to fix the middle linebacker spot and get everyone back on the same page again. But who on defense had a bad game? Can you think of anyone?
Yeah, no. They were steady.
I mean, Reek Woolen gave up one big play, but
the nice thing
he was there.
The nice thing about the defense, Keith, is not just today, but it's 3 weeks in a row. It's the consistency now that I'm seeing that was missing. It's the big plays. It's the big plays at the right time. It's the consistent pressure. Now they may not. They got the sacks today. They got 5 sacks, and against Kyler Murray doesn't take that many sacks. Especially this year, he's been playing really well. And to have that pressure and to have it show, I knew the game was going to go a certain way. I think it was in the first series, Keith, where they had like a 6 or 7 player blitz. And they got to him. And I was like, wow, that's aggressive. That's the way that this is going to go. This is going to be an aggressive game. They're going to call it aggressively. They're going to try to make Kyler Murray make mistakes and get him off his spot and get him out of rhythm. And even if they call those blitzes on run plays, that can be very disruptive as well. So I think the overall aggression and the confidence to be aggressive, we just haven't seen that very much this season.
We haven't seen that very much really nice. In the last 15 years, because that was never a Pete Carroll calling card.
Yeah. Well, and it hasn't been for Mike McDonald usually. I mean, in Baltimore, they were lower.
Baltimore,
third of
they didn't
league.
blitz much at all, but they didn't need to. They were getting pressure with their front four because they had a really good front four. And yes, it's a 3-4 defense, but they're always bring one of the outside linebackers. But the Seahawks don't quite have that yet. I mean, they've got some pieces in place, but they don't have a nose tackle that makes a difference. And Dre Jones isn't getting it done on most plays. I thought he had a better game this week. Set the edge a couple times really well. Got after the quarterback. When
everybody's playing well and doing their job, then everyone else looks really good. So I think Dre Jones will have been fine the last 3 or 4 weeks. In fact, if there's one player that has benefited the most from Leonard Williams playing out of his mind and
Ernest Jones,
and everyone else on the, everything just seems to be working really well. Okay, so we're 6-5. I think technically we're tied with Arizona now for first place in the NFC West. I don't know what the Rams have done. I know that the 49ers looked bad against the Green Bay Packers at one point.
The 49ers looked awful, but they also didn't have their quarterback, and they're just a walking mash unit. I mean, it's ugly in Santa Clara right now. The Rams are playing here in about a half an hour after we record.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where they were.
Yeah, they play Philadelphia here in, I guess it's 18 minutes. And so that will be an interesting game if Philly comes away with that win. That puts Seattle in the driver's seat for the division. And who would have thought that was going to be true a couple weeks ago?
Well, you still got to keep playing. Like it's so funny. I've got this PTSD thing going on with the Seahawks. It's like I don't know how much I should trust because I just feel like something's going to happen or it's not going to stay good, or we'll have this big letdown against a bad team this next week against the Jets. We should be beating the Jets
God,
handily.
the Jets are bad. I know everyone was like, "Yeah, they got Aaron Rodgers and he's healthy now." But as a team, that is not a good football team. They really aren't. The Seahawks better win that game.
Mm-hmm.
Just straight up, they better win that game.
And if that happens, boy, these things start to stack. Mike McDonald talks about stacking wins, stacking this, stacking that. These things start to stack up together, and all of a sudden we're relevant again, which is kind of fun.
You can see the confidence and swagger the defense is playing with, and that has built over these last 3 weeks of them playing really well, and that just makes them better. And we just need the offense to start doing some things. If the offense was anything beyond pathetic, which is what it was, they win this game going away.
Yeah. Well, Gino doesn't throw that interception in the end zone. They win by 16, 17 points.
Yeah.
That's how dominant that defense was.
Yeah. At the same time, they were about an inch away from losing this game on the other Geno interception that fortunately for Seattle got called back, because instead of that,
the ball hit the ground.
Instead of that 8-minute drive to put it into 2 scores, you get Arizona with 15 yards from the end zone and a chance to win. And it did hit the ground. That's what I mean. About an inch.
He threw it behind Ken Walker.
It wasn't even close to Ken Walker.
It almost was intercepted.
I mean, it was that was a terrible throw. So like that's how close
those type of things.
That's how close this game was, though.
It's those type of plays, Keith, and the other play too, where he could have run for the first down, and we could have had 4 more downs to get into the end zone. And instead, he chose to kind of force it into there. It's those kind of plays that really do counteract the big time drive that he had to seal the game. It's like, that's why we keep having this debate over and over again about Geno Smith. It's like, is he the guy? Is he able to do it? Are we going to extend him? Is he worth $40 million?
He made a bunch of plays in that final drive, really in the last 2, in order to make things work and make things happen for the team. But he also made a bunch of boneheaded, awful decisions and played genuinely just crappy.
I think that I would say, okay, you say a bunch. I'm going to say 4. He made 4 plays out of however many snaps that set the team back. Took two bad sacks and then the 2 turnover worthy plays.
No, there were plenty of him heaving the ball down the field when he's got someone wide open for a first down. And that kind of stuff. There were, 4 plays is a drastic.
Well, I'm certainly not trying to apologize for him, but I want to put it in perspective, because, playing in the NFL is hard, especially with the offensive line that we do have. And I know I've seen Geno play enough to know his mindset. Just looking at him play, it's like the guy is super duper competitive, wants to win, wants to put the team on his back, often does put the team on his back, often is successful when he does. So I'm not going to kill him for throwing an interception or here and there or whatever. But when you say, multiple mistakes a game or whatever, it's awfully hard to stand behind a quarterback and make those arguments in favor of him when those things happen. And
it's not just that they happen. It's that they happen multiple times every single week. And therein lies the problem with Geno Smith, is that he can be freaking brilliant, like he was a week ago on that last drive that gave them the win over the 49ers. That was as good a quarterback play as you're going to see. And even on that drive that ended in the 50-yard field goal, like, Arizona was all over him. They made it really hard for him, but he kept coming through. He kept getting at there are times when Geno is amazing. He looks like every bit a franchise quarterback, like you could win a championship with him. But that's usually in the fourth quarter or late in the fourth quarter. And in quarters 1 through 3, he genuinely doesn't look good. This team has yet to score a touchdown on their first drive. Now, that has, to me, that says a lot about the offensive coordinator. But it also says that this is a team that does not play well early. They need to fix that. They really do.
Yeah.
The fact that they haven't had a first drive touchdown all year is...
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they have not scored a first drive touchdown at any point. I don't even know if they've had first drive points. I need to look that up.
I think they.
I think they got a field.
Maybe.
I think they got a field goal once, but genuinely, when they get the ball, that first drive isn't effective in any way, and that.
Yeah, we need to figure out the offense enough to be middling, because if the defense is going to play like a top 5 defense, maybe that's all it takes. I don't know.
If the defense plays like it did today, they can beat anybody. But you can also have the defense play like it did today and lose, because that's what happened a couple of weeks ago against the Rams.
If you have 3 picks,
yeah,
that's what happens.
Because the defense played great and the offense pissed it away. So you at least need something from the offense.
Okay. So we're out of here for today. 16-6 over the Cardinals. Seattle moves to 6-5. The Cardinals also are 6-5. I think technically, by tiebreaker, the Cardinals are a half a game ahead of the Seahawks, or by tiebreaker, they're not a half a game ahead. But by tiebreaker, they've got one more conference win or one more division win than the Seahawks do. So.
Yeah, but the first tiebreaker is head-to-head, and
that's true.
Seattle won the head-to-head. Now, of course, that's with another game coming up, and so if Arizona wins,
are important.
If Arizona wins that game, then they have the conference tiebreaker over Seattle, and if Seattle wins that game, then not only do they have the head-to-head, but they've also got a lead. So that game now becomes really important.
I'm going to that game. That'll be a fun game. This is the most significant game in Arizona that the Seahawks have had in a long time.
Yeah, because Arizona just hasn't been relevant for most of the time.
And Seattle hasn't been relevant. Let's be honest. And we've played them at the end of the season 2 years in a row. At the end of the season. So anyway, okay. So let's get out of here. Find us on Twitter. Find us on your favorite podcast platform. Find us on our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button. We'll be back this week with a preview show for the upcoming game this next weekend. And I hope everybody has a great holiday. It's Thanksgiving week. Hug your family, friends, and neighbors, and be kind, and let's enjoy that. So until next time, Keith, go Hawks.
Go Hawks. Brine your turkey.
Hey, I'm doing that. See ya.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NWSeahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.